Hi, Ben, the SaaS CFO here with another video tutorial. Today I'll be addressing the CAC Payback Period. So what is the CAC Payback Period? The CAC Payback Period is the length of time required to pay back your upfront customer acquisition cost after accounting for the variable expenses to service that customer. It's typically measured in months. So for example, how many months does it take to pay back your CAC? CAC Payback Period is calculated simply by dividing your CAC by your gross margin dollars generated by that customer. And there are two ways to calculate that. So let's dive into the first one here. The first method that I like to use is the average cost of service method. And if you haven't heard of ACS, I'll dive into that in the next slide. By using the ACS method, it's CAC divided by your MRR for that customer minus the monthly average cost of service for that customer to get your CAC payback period. So to put numbers to it, if your CAC is 10,000, you divide that by 1,000 of MRR minus 500, which would be gross margin dollars contributing towards your payback. And dividing that, you get 20 months. So what the heck is average cost of service? So ACS is the cost of service your existing customers. So this goes beyond the expenses that are calculated in your recurring gross margin stream. So your recurring gross margin stream usually includes technical support, hosting, customer success if they're not selling, and R&D amort. ACS takes that a step further and includes R&D net of cap, so the maintenance and bug fixes required to support your software, and account management to upsell and handle the existing customers. The second method is the pure, I'd say, just using the recurring gross margin method. So this is CAC divided by your MRR times your recurring revenue gross margin percentage. So again, if your CAC is 10,000 and your MRR for the customer is 1,000, you multiply that by your recurring revenue gross margin of 80%, for example, and in this case, you get 12 and a half months. And again, as a reminder, COGS for recurring gross margin typically includes tech support, your CSM team, cost of ops, which includes hosting third party, etc. So what's a good number for the CAC payback period? You typically hear less than 18 months. I really believe it depends on your type of sale and deal size. So if you're an enterprise SaaS, your payback period could be up 2 to 3 years. Over 3 years, really not a good idea because your cash is tied up way too long in your CAC, and churn becomes much more of a factor for your business. If you're low touch SaaS, it's going to be less than a year would be good. Less than 6 months would be great. So a couple key considerations with the CAC payback period. Using the ACS method is more conservative because, as I said before, it takes gross margin expenses for your recurring revenue stream and adds a couple more expenses such as R&D for maintenance and your account management team. So when you pay back your CAC using the ACS method, you really reached a break-even point on that customer. CAC is completely paid back. You've covered your variable cost, and now you're contributing towards your fixed expenses. Using this method, it's going to be higher. It's going to be a longer CAC payback period, thus more conservative. For the recurring gross margin method, you are not break even yet on that customer because I believe you've just covered the expenses to support that recurring revenue stream, and you have not covered your expenses for any maintenance, bug fixes, and customer contact with your account management team. And as a side note, if your gross margin is okay, so say you've got a great recurring revenue gross margin percentage, but you're struggling with cash flow or low EBITDA margins, OpEx could be an issue. So check that out if this is a case for you. One last note with churn and CAC payback period. Be aware of churn. CAC is like debt. So for example, if you lose your job and have a car loan, you still have to pay that loan back. Same way with CAC. If you lose that customer early, you don't have a revenue stream to cover that CAC now. And it just puts more burden on new logo acquisition and more burden on your cash flow, tying up cash and reducing margins. So that's it today on the CAC Payback Period. For these slides and more resources, check out the SaaSCFO.com. Thanks.